But I just want to stop and at least have a conversation with Mr. Hamm. Yes, and Ms. Lawson, please make sure I'm actually going to do so that we can at least hear something about this book and how it came about, and have an opportunity for them to kind of to speak on it. I am Dr. Stephanie James Harris. I am the program chair for African Studies at Seton University. And I have known both individuals for a very long time. As a former executive director of the Homicide Commission, I had the pleasure of being able to interact with Ms. Alston and Mr. Hamm. I think the first time I met Mr. Hamm, actually maybe come speak at the regional training building, and we were talking about the homicide law. And Ms. Alston was an educator extraordinaire, always. And so it's my pleasure to be able to see them collaborate on this particular work. When I see this book, I think about all the young people that are discouraged from public service and what it means when you can actually push in to students and allow them to fulfill their public discourse at a very early age, and what it means when you're going to set them on a legacy and career that comes as a result of that. I am so proud that this book has come into fruition. This is a story that needs to be told. Your life story is one that everybody always says, oh my goodness, when do we have time to do all of that, right? But the years that go on, it is now in print, and we all will have the opportunity of being able to learn about it and to be able to learn lessons and glimmers from it. So before we get started, I know that we have some people that are in the room that will not be able to be here now for long, but I do want to make sure I'm able to make some remarks before I ask the two of you to kind of engage in a discussion about the process and their thoughts and reflections on the book. So I wanted to be able to just offer the mic if she wanted to give some words to Ms. Amy Goodman, the host of Democracy Now! Yes, because you know he always puts people on the spot. That's what he does. So if you wanted to bring any remarks, if you wanted to be able to say yes, if you do not listen to Democracy Now!, you want to make sure that they know what the platform is and know their voice.
I wasn't here to speak. I just want to say I'm here to listen. But it is an honor to be here, and congratulations to the two of you on this book. Larry, from your early troublemaking years in the school board here in Newark, through college and taking on the establishment from South Africa, to all of your just remarkable decades of work. I think of James Baldwin, whose poster is there. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And thank you, Larry Hamm, Adimu, for making people face so much of what's happening so that it can be changed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodman. I appreciate that. So, my first question, of course, is to Mr. Hamm. And it's a reflection question, and I know once I hear the mic, he's going to be going, right? We know that. But when I think about you, I think about you being a disruptor, a necessary disruptor, right? Sometimes they call them change makers and all kinds of things. Change makers, what we call people when we look back in hindsight, right? In the moment, we call them disruptors. We call them people that are not going along with status quo and that are willing to put their voice and actions behind what they believe in, often disrupting systems that do not need to be in existence. You start that at a very young age, and this book is about your journey through that and what it has meant to you. I'm going to ask, why do you feel that this story needs to be told now? And why would you see, how do you see yourself as a disruptor and being able to recount that story?
Power to the people. I'm very glad to to be here. Happy Women's History Month. Happy International Women's Day. And I think one of the things with regard to that is when people read this book, they will see throughout my life the role that women have played side by side in this struggle for social justice. I mean, at every level, at every level, in every struggle, from the beginning, when we first marched out of Arts High School. In fact, this is the 53rd anniversary. It was in March of 1971. Women, young women, played a key role in that and in every other struggle. In fact, I would dare to say on Women's History Month that our struggle for social transformation cannot succeed without the participation and leadership of women in the struggle. I think that's absolutely critical. Why did I write this book? Because Annette Alston made me write this book. People have been saying to me for years that I should write a book. I even tried more than once to start writing, but you know, there's a contradiction between being a person of letters and being a person in action. And it's very difficult to navigate the contradiction successfully. But it was Annette Alston who came to me 5 years ago. This book has been 5 years in the making, really. And she said that Annette had already become an accomplished author. Before this book, she already had published several works before this one. So I was honored when she approached me and said, let's work on this book together. And I knew she was the one to help, not just because she had written 2 previous books, one of which is on Harriet Tubman, but because in Annette's life you have a synthesis of action and words. Many people don't know Annette Alston herself was a community activist, is a community activist. She was twice president of the Newark Teachers Association. And when she took over the Newark Teachers Association, it became an ally to the People's Organization for Progress in almost every struggle that we were involved in. She herself has been for years an active member of the People's Organization for Progress. She comes from a family, and her brother is here, Jonathan Alston, who is one of the hosts, along with Edward Riley, who is here, of that dynamic weekly show, All Politics Are Local. Give them a hand, But Annette comes from a family that was engaged in the Black liberation struggle. Her mother and father were supporters of Amiri Baraka when he was leading the struggle here to elect the first Black mayor of Newark, Ken Gibson, and when he headed up the Committee for a Unified Newark Seat Fund, which was Baraka's organization at that time. So I can think of no person better qualified to have assisted in writing this book than Annette Alston. And I owe her an eternal debt of gratitude. And I want to say for the record that it is as much her book as it is my book. You know, and I thank you. I also want to thank the People's Organization for Progress, because you cannot tell story of the People's Organization for Progress. This year, POP will observe its 42nd anniversary. We have been on the field as an organization for 42 years, and much of this book, the great majority of this book, is about various struggles in which POP was deeply involved, if not leading those struggles. I might not even be sitting here today if it wasn't for the members of the People's Organization for Progress. POP is an all-volunteer organization. I know a lot of y'all thought I did this as a living, that I made a living as an activist. No, I was working a 9 to 5, just like all the other POP members. Work jobs, go to work every day. But because we did that, we did not want that to preclude us from building an organization that could be part of the Black liberation movement. So I thank the members of the People's Organization for Progress. In particular, I see our Vice Chairwoman here, Ingrid Hill, who runs the out front man. And is our Vice Chairman here, Larry Adams? He might be at work. He's not retired like me, so you know. So I thank POP. And lastly, I want to give a word of thanks to someone who also worked very hard on the book. His name is not on the book, but perhaps it should have been. He played a tremendous role in the editing of the book, proofreading, etc. And that is none other than a professor at Seton Hall University and an author in his own right, Todd Stevens. So I wanted to, give that. I know I left somebody out. Please don't be offended. If I sit here thanking everybody, we won't get to the book signing. Then people would be. And I'm so glad Amy Goodman came. Many people don't know, Amy Goodman and I have known each other for almost 40 years. Yes, I knew Amy. We had a mutual friend who was also a writer, author, internationally known, Alan Nairn, and we met way back in the college days. That was even before she was on WBAI. What was the show in the morning? Wake Up Call with Bernard White. That was even before then. So we have been working with each other on and off over the years. She's had me on her show many times, and for that I'm grateful. Two of the speakers that are supposed to be here that are not here could not be here. One is the Reverend Dr. M. William Howard, the former pastor of Bethany Baptist Church. I believe he wrote the foreword in the book, and also Norman Finkelstein, who's gotten a lot of attention recently because of his role in fighting the genocidal war in Gaza. Norman Finkelstein, I don't see him. We thought he was going to be here. And he wrote the postscript to the book. And also, I think there was a final word in the book by Brother Zaid Muhammad, poet, author, and activist in his own right. Give Brother Zaid a hand. Brother Zaid is out here. So, is there any part of that first question I didn't answer? What is it? Oh, yes. Yes, I'm a street corner agitator. And that's how I should always be introduced. I didn't start out being a disruptor. I didn't come from a political family. I'm so glad to see in the audience the president of the NAACP Newark chapter, Deborah Smith Gregory. And why boroughs when he was writing for the New Jersey Afro-American. Now that had to be almost 40 years ago, if not 40 years ago. And guess who was the editor of the New Jersey Afro-American at that time? Deborah Smith Gregory was the editor, and that's when I met them, and Deborah used to make sure that Todd would come out and cover the events of POP. But I say that to say, my parents were not activists. I don't even think they belonged to the NAACP, at least they never told me. And of course, I'm not privy to every conversation adults in my house had, but my folks were regular working folks. My father was a truck driver. My mother was a seamstress. She worked in the cleaners around the corner. I lived for 22 years at 527 South 12th Street, New York, between 16th and 18th Avenue, right across the street from West Side Park. My mother worked around the corner at the Hoffmanizing Cleaners. My father passed away when I was 4. My grandfather became, as they say in Latin, loco parentis. He became my parent in place of my father. My grandfather was what they call a boiler man. He ran the boilers of a factory in Bloomfield, New Jersey at night. You had to keep the boilers going so that they could be in production the next morning. And when I was in school until 1971, I was just regular. You know, I like Larry, you know, and you know, I was active, but active in a very conventional way. But when I got to Arts High, things began to change. The first week we were at Arts High, there was a student orientation. And you know, in the student orientation, they bring the whole school into the auditorium. Teachers, students, everybody. And different people talk. So at a certain point, the principal at Arts High called on the student government president to speak. And at that time, Arts High was still integrated. I don't know if that's the case now, but 1967, it was. And the president of student government was a young white fellow named David Hamm. And the principal asked David Hamm to come up on the stage and talk about the student government, Halloween party and the UNICEF collection. But David didn't talk about the Halloween party and the UNICEF collection. In front of the whole school, David started talking about the war in Vietnam. Now, I didn't know, don't ask me, Larry, why didn't you know about Vietnam? I was 13, I didn't know about Vietnam. I couldn't have found Vietnam on the map. But David started talking about Vietnam. The principal stood up and said, David, don't talk about Vietnam. Talk about what we asked you to talk about. He kept talking. The principal went and laid his hands on David and tried to drag David from the podium. And I'm sitting there, you know, because I had been thrown out of school in 8th grade, so I was trying to turn over new people. I didn't want to get in no trouble. You know, I'm sitting there, and they were struggling. And he was trying to give us some kind of political message the best way he could as a senior in high school. I think he got thrown out of school behind that. But that was a precursor. And then that summer, 1967, there was the rebellion, the uprising in Newark. And my people, you know, we didn't talk. I mean, like I said, I was a kid. I wasn't privy to every conversation. We didn't talk about racism. As far as I knew, we didn't even call ourselves black. You know, way back then, we called ourselves colored. You know, my people was from Gainesville, Georgia. We didn't even use the word Negro. I don't think we used the word Negro. We were colored people. You know, but the rebellion broke out, and I lived virtually in the heart of the Central Board. And so I started asking my folks, like we sitting on the porch, literally watching everything on fire. And started asking them about, and that was the first discussion I had about racism. So there was a teacher strike in 1971, my senior year. They told us if we missed 35 consecutive days of school, we weren't going to graduate. Nobody cared about the student council until then. All those seniors that had applied to college and were thinking that they weren't going to go to college, they were like, what are you going to do about this? You know? So we organized in March of 1971, we organized a walkout. 90% of the students walked out. We marched down to the Gateway Hotel, which is now the Doubletree Hotel, that's across the street from Penn Station. And that's where the board and the union were negotiating. There were about 400 of us, 200 of us got in and sat in. And then Ken Gibson showed up. He had just been elected because there was a Black Power movement in Newark. In 1967, during the rebellion, there was a Black Power conference, literally blocks from here, downtown Newark. The following year, 68, there was a Black Power convention at West Kenny Junior High School. The following year, 1969, there was a Black and Puerto Rican convention at Clinton Place Junior High School. And out of that came the Community's Choice team with Gibson at the head of the ticket, and then Sharp James and Dennis Westbrooks and others. So Gibson came to the sit-in. I think all the police in Newark was downstairs, all the fire trucks, and he said that he would take our concerns and that he would make the board and union deal with our concerns. He just didn't want anybody to get hurt or get arrested. So we withdrew, and 2 months later, he asked me if I would be a member of the Board of Education in the city of Newark. Not a student representative, not an advisory board member, one of the actual 9 voting board members. And on on July 1st, 1971, at the age of 17, I was sworn in as the youngest school board member in the history of the United States of America. And I think I still hold that record. The point I'm trying to make, to directly answer that question, trying to give context, is that forces of history pushed me into the struggle. I wasn't born this way. You know, I just wanted to go to school, go to college, and be a lawyer. I wanted to be like Ryan Hagan. He's sitting back there. Give him a hand. You're really doing social justice. But the forces of history and the movement pushed me and pulled me into the movement. There were even times I was in the movement and I still wanted to go in the original direction. But at every junction, there was always a struggle that pushed me deeper and deeper and deeper. And here I am today, at the age of 70. I'm on the last lap, but I'm going to run this race to the end.
You got a lot of relax together. So from the back of the book, and I want people to really be here to purchase, buy this book for young people that need to be inspired. Buy this book and read it and make sure it's something that we pass around to others and say, have you read this book? This is a story that needs to be told. I love this last line in regards to your intro from the back. It's an intimate portrait of a man who took this elite education, tremendous oratory skills, which we just saw, we always did, right? And well-honed stamina and creative transmutational sphere. And you put that sphere straight through every fight we need to have to. And this is a documentary sort of book that says how this journey for him had nothing to do. And the people were at the core of it, right? You've been involved in fighting for quality of education, employment opportunities, access to health care, against racial profiling, police brutality, and we know how Pop has been so instrumental and a necessary voice in all of those struggles. So we thank you for writing this book, for allowing this book to come to fruition. Now I want to talk about the woman who was responsible for capturing the voice. Because whenever a story is told, the real crunch of whenever someone is working collaboratively on a writing is if you're able to be an empathetic listener and writer enough to put yourself in it, to be able to transcend the voice. And if not, sometimes the story gets changed. I know you brilliantly were able to do that. What was it like to be able to work with Ms. Hamm and to kind of think about how you wanted the story structured and what needed to be included, because I know there was 1,000 that could have been included in this.
And that's so true. Can you hear me now? Yes, green. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So, really, it just took time talking to Larry, really thinking about, okay, what do you want in this book? And we started creating, an outline, a sketch. And then even after we, got through much of the book, we realized there was still more that needed to be added. And we added more chapters to it. And then even with that, I feel like the full story has not been told. There are parts dealing with, I wanted to go more into Mumia, and the relationship with Mumia, and that was kind of difficult. There's a great deal of research and everything that goes into the book. It's not just about talking to Larry, I recorded him and everything, but there was a great deal of research that went into every aspect of his life and the movements and so for background purposes and everything. And with Lumia, I definitely had information on Lumia, the connection with Larry. I needed to talk to Lumia because there were some conversations I think that they had and couldn't remember everything. So I said it's something we can return back to. In terms of the writing, it just took a lot of time, planning, help from various people, talking to POP members, talking to Todd, looking at the minutes, so it just took a lot of time, just structurally putting everything together, deciding what we were going to focus on, and just letting Larry talk, and oftentimes when I went to speak with him on speaking engagements, and I was halfway through the book and everything, and he would start talking about something that wasn't in the book. And I said, Larry, can you tell me about that? So we would have to go back and, okay, so tell me about this. And so, that's basically how it came together. It's just a hodgepodge of, situations. We started off with an outline and a sketch, and then it kind of evolved from there over time. And that's how the book is. And I'm not going to take any more time. It's almost 3 o'clock.
So my last question is to both of you. Before I allow you to go back and for everybody to be able to purchase this book and sell out that, because I'm just going to claim that down. We're going to be sold out. It's not going to be sold out. And you all have to feel everybody has bought it for themselves and for someone else. We're going to give them the gifts. We're going to have them. I'm just going to speak that in right now before we even get back to that space, because we want this in reprint and reprint and reprint, because it needs to be. I did not know if there was anything specific. Was there any passage that you might want to read or share before we leave here? Is there any particular passage or any section of the book that you really no?
Let me first, before I say anything, I say just one thing. I was going to say, my daughters are here. 2 of my daughters. Who's here? Imani and is it Nia? Laini. My oldest daughter and my youngest daughter. Would y'all put your hands up, please? I have a picture. Is the picture in the book? There's a picture in It's in it, right? There's a picture in the book of my daughter, Laini, because when I was at Princeton, we were finally living there together because they wouldn't let me bring my family initially. Well, anyway, I used to, when we had protests at Princeton, I used to carry Laini on my shoulders on the picket line in the protest. But there's another picture of Laini in the book, in the arms of Muhammad Ali. Yes, in the arms of Muhammad Ali. And I was invited to speak at the United Nations. I was invited to speak before the United Nations Special Committee Against Apartheid, which was chaired by the ambassador from Nigeria, Leslie Harriman. I believe that was his name. He was the chair of the Special Committee Against Apartheid. And I didn't know that the day I was to address the Special Committee Against Apartheid, Muhammad Ali was also there. Like, we were sitting right together, right? And, you know, back in those days, I didn't have a camera. I had gone to the drugstore to buy, remember they used to sell these little paper cameras in the drugstore with like cardboard cameras? So when the speaking was over, you know, we were walking out together and there's a mad rush because Muhammad Ali was there, everybody was rushing and I had Laini in one hand and the camera in the other hand. I actually wanted to take a picture with Muhammad Ali, but there was so many people around us and so much was going on. I don't know why. I just handed Laini to Muhammad Ali, and he embraced her. And that picture is one of the few that survived from this period. Truthfully, I had not planned to read. I thought Annette was going to read. But I would like to read this. I would like to read, and this got in the book, unbeknownst to me, page 271, the preamble to the Constitution of the People's Organization for Progress. And I would like to read that if people don't mind. So you could understand the ideas that animated us to found POP in 1982. Often you'll hear people say 1983. 1983 is the year we adopted the Constitution of the People's Organization for Progress. But POP as an organization was already organizing and mobilizing. And it was one of our members and my close friend who was with me when we were student activists. I saw him come in. Is Jimmy Young in here? Stand up, Jimmy Young. Give Jimmy Young a big hand. Jimmy Young was a student at Wheatway High School. And when I was on the board, we formed a citywide student organization called the New Art Student Federation. Jimmy Young is the only person I know that actually kept the button, that we had our own organizational button. He sent the button to me, the New Art Student Federation button. It was red, of course it was red, black, and green. And it had a red book with a black fist on it. You know, we had to, he said, but Jimmy, I think it was either Jimmy or Greg Adams, also sent me a leaflet from a forum we had about the economic crisis in 1982 called 20 Years Later, Still Catching Hell. We held that forum, I believe, at Missionary Baptist Church in East Carmel. But anyway, I just want to read from the preamble of the Constitution of the People's Organization for Progress. We, the members of the People's Organization for Progress, have founded this association to work for the fundamental transformation of the society in which we live. It is our desire to build a more just social order. Our primary goal is nothing less than the complete elimination of poverty, all forms of social, racial, and economic exploitation, oppression, degradation, human misery, suffering, and injustice. We shall unify and organize working, poor, and progressive people to foster cooperation, self-reliance, and a militant fighting spirit among them. We shall build our organization so that it may become a viable political vehicle for the oppressed and a significant force for progressive politics. We shall work to unite the greater progressive community, increase its ranks, and build a broad mass movement at the local level, which will be an integral part of a national and worldwide struggle for social and economic justice. Our concern is not only for society as a whole, but for the individualism as well. We seek not only social transformation, but the transformation of the individual through involvement in the struggle for human liberation. We believe that in order for the struggle to transform society to succeed, it must be carried out and supported by people imbued with revolutionary values. We want to make the individual socially aware and concerned, more responsible and compassionate, committed and active in the struggle for social change. We support and involve ourselves in advocacy, self-help, and reform efforts to improve the conditions of the people. However, we believe that the major social, economic, and political problems confronting working and poor people cannot be solved unless there is a radical redistribution of power and wealth in our society and a restructuring of our socioeconomic system that will result in the empowerment of the masses over all institutions that affect their lives. We vow to uphold the legacy of struggle which we have inherited and not rest until justice, equality, dignity, and peace are a reality for all. We go back in 1982, and we still trying to strive for it. You want me to let Annette say a word? Annette? No?
So the only privilege I'm going to take, no, that's okay, can't take any question. And then, listen, okay, so before I do that though, I just want to make sure, I know the mayor just came in, I don't know if he wants to be able to say it. He wants to be able to say it, he wants to stop. Oh, there it is. If you want to say anything, never.
Yes, Mr. Larry. I invite Mayor Brascarata. Please come and say it.
Yes, sir. I really just came to support Larry more than anything.
That's right.
I think he deserves this. We ought to support him because he's been supporting us forever. He's been the most consistent, organized, activist, and the most principled, I should say. Sometimes we get really unprincipled, even unprincipled with each other. I think, even me having to defend Larry from other people who I think become unprincipled. And I think that his example is really an example for all of us. Yeah. His ability to organize people across nationality, across zip code, across religion, all of those things are incredibly important, especially in a country that's becoming more and more polarized every day, in a world that's becoming more polarized and run by extremists all over the world. The things that you see happening around the world because extremists are in charge of it. Right-wing conservative extremists are in charge of it. Everywhere where you see war, when you see all the things that are happening, that's what's going on. And Larry has a way of pushing you just by showing up. That's right. So even on the question of the war in Gaza, that he came and talked to me about that, and I had some people try to slow me down just a little bit, for their own interests. I get that, I understand, and I'm a team player, so I do what's necessary. But after having a conversation with Larry, it took me a couple of weeks to just let me just go ahead and put this down thing out. That's what I did, and that's important. So I know this book is incredible. I would urge everybody to buy it. I'm going to buy it, I don't want the copies for free, I'm going to purchase my book, because writers need to be paid. Complain about not getting paid, and I don't get paid most of the time for things I write. So I think he should be paid, and the work that he's done, he can never be reimbursed for, that he does for this community over and over and over and over again, since he was a kid, by the way, in this city. So we love you, brother.
Yay.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. And before we take 3 questions, let me just say a word about, and I'm glad you're here. Let me just say, with the utmost gravity, the impact that your father had on my life. I first saw his father for the first time. I went to Arts High, so those of you who are in my age class can remember, they talk about my senior year, my age group can remember when the headquarters of the Committee for Unified North, 502 High Street, was right down the street from Arts High School. I had to pass it every day, but I never saw his father. But the first teacher strike, which was a short one in 1970, he came to Arts High and spoke to us. They wouldn't let him address the whole student body. They let him speak to the student council in room B13 on the first floor. And I had never heard anybody speak like that before. I'd been in church. I heard preaching, but I had never heard him talk like that before. And it stuck with me. Then after I was appointed to the Board of Education, his father sent a brother that was a member of the organization. His name was Jaledi Majadi. And Majadi came to me and said, Imam, because he was known as Imam in 1971. He said, Imam wants to meet with you. And I said, okay, let's go. And we went to the Hikalu Umoja. That was the name of 502 High Street. It was Hikalu Umoja, which is Swahili for Temple of the Teacher. There was another Hikalu on what we call now Urban Turner Boulevard, it's called Belmont Avenue then. That was Hikalu Mwalimu. Yes, Hikalu Mwalimu, Temple of the Teacher. Hikalu Umoja was House of Unity. Umoja's Unity, House of Unity. Right next to Hikalu Umoja was Nayumu Yaujima, which was the store, the bookstore. So anyway, we go upstairs, and I had never seen anything like this. This is why we need a cultural center. Right. You know, when you went to the Ikalu, like we have these pictures, they had huge pictures of Kwame Nkrumah, you know, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, all the leaders, and women as well as men, all around the college. And you see where the plaster is in the wall? They had actually etched in African-style artwork into the walls of the building. And this was on all the floors, as you went, even in the stairwell. And one of our members who passed away, which Brother Amanifu, he helped with that artwork. But Imamu's office was on the 3rd floor, so I had to get cleared by security on every floor. On the 1st floor, the 2nd floor, and the 3rd floor. And finally, I got to the 3rd floor, and they were opening the door. I don't know, I just keep thinking about that scene in The Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy was going to meet the wizard. That's how I felt. You know, I knew that this was a special moment. I knew that this was a special moment. And the door shook my hand, have a seat, you know, and we just talked. And it wasn't like, he wasn't trying to brainwash me. He wasn't trying to force his ideology on me. He just wanted to get to know me. But he did say, you know, you have a role, you're on the school board, you have a role to play in the movement. And it was Amiri Baraka that breathed the revolutionary spirit into me. And his bookstore, I still have the copy of Malcolm X speech, the paperback copy. It's going to turn to dust in my hand. I bought at Naumia Ujamaa in 1971. I bought that copy of Malcolm X. But I wanted to say this to the mayor, that his family had an impact on my life. Not only his father, but his mother too. Amina Baraka, who was a leader in her own right, you know, and who continues to support the work that we do. So, Brother Mayor, I just wanted to say that. Because I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I want you to hear that. If I don't see you again, I wanted you to hear that.
Beautiful.
Let me just speak up, I have to say. Chairman, please. Hey, no, I got it. We're gonna do it. Listen. So this is the thing. Do you want to listen? Listen, I'm gonna take over. I'm listening. You started off with the ladies. Keep playing, right? So the purpose of today is that we're launching this book. But we don't want anybody to ask questions today because we want people to study the book. Right? So you can't ask questions without studying it. You're be a professor. Right? So this is my promise to you. And because it is twofold for me, because I am extremely interested in people understanding that Seton Hall University is for the community. So Mama Barbara, Ozara, Dr. Harris back there, my cohort, Dr. Harris back there. We are going to plan an opportunity at Seton Hall for a book talk. And we're going to pick a date, we're going to find a date. Literally, I'm going to give y'all a month to read the book, so y'all get in line and buy the book. And they're going to be able to ask many more than 3 questions. That is my goal. But I don't want anybody to ask any questions right now that's not related to this wonderful authorship, because I want them to buy it and read it, and then be able to ask you questions about it. Okay? Can you guys do that? And then it will be a Seton Hall, right, Mama Barbara? Because that's what we're going to do. African Studies and Seton Hall is going to make sure. Because I also want students to hear your voices, because they need to understand the power of so I'm just going to say this, as we all, then I'm going to ask you all to join me in a round of applause for both of them. Mr. Hamm read the preamble, so I want to thank you for being a person that understood that we will transform society, and it will only succeed and be carried out by folks like you, imbued with revolutionary values, and that you have made others socially aware and concerned, more responsible and compassionate, committed and active in the struggle for social justice. And this book becomes a recounting of it, and we're all going to read it and buy it. So will everybody join me in a round of applause?